Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, and I'm very glad we could do this. I'm very glad that we at St. John's could host a celebration and a signing of a wonderful new book written by a wonderful old friend. Natalie Goldberg's connection with this college goes back very far. 1974, was it? 1970. Wow, way before mine, even though I am officially a fixture and an old fart now at this place. But so there's a very long and deep connection. And Natalie and I have been friends for a while, and even though our busy schedules mean we hardly see each other, it's a close and a deep friendship. And and I consider myself one of her students, even though I never took a class with her. But her work has influenced me deeply. In many ways, her work and what we do at St. John's is very similar, very connected. If the sort of primary foundation of what we do is knowing yourself and really knowing your own life and encountering your own life. For me, Natalie is, in a way, a revolutionary in that she, I think, is the first person who really made writing explicit as both spiritual practice and a kind of therapy beyond therapy. So it's not a therapy with therapists. It's a therapy that where you actually encounter yourself. And as I was driving up and just reflecting on what I could say in this little introduction that would make any sense. At first, my usual feeling of panic, getting up in front of a lot of people, made me think that I should just say, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Natalie Goldberg. She needs no introduction," and then sit down. But then, as I was driving, it occurred to me that a number of images just popped into my mind about what her work has meant to me, and I'll just share some of them with you, knowing that you will have your own images for the kind of effect that her work has made on you. One thing that popped to my mind is that Natalie Goldberg is not a writer. She is an alarm clock. Right? Or a gong, or something like that. So wake up. Pay attention. Look, this is your life. Wake up. Time to get up. Right? So her anything I've read by her has had that effect on me, right from the first pages. Another image that came to mind was Natalie Goldberg is not a writer. She is a bunch of keys. Okay, so every book by Natalie is a bunch of keys, and they are keys to a house that you haven't entered yet, and that's your life. So you go with these keys, and each of her books has a number of chapters. Each one is a key. So you go in there and you try every one of them, and one of them opens the door, right? Invariably. So a bunch of keys. What else is she like? It occurred to me that Natalie Goldberg is like a bee sting. Like when you're a child, you remember like rolling around in the grass, in the times when children were able to roll in the grass. Not anymore, but you could just roll wildly in the grass, and all of a sudden, right? And it's something like an electric shock, and all of a sudden the grass has come to life in a way that you never realized before. You thought it was just an inert thing for you to roll in, but in fact it's alive and it's got a sense of its own. And almost any essay by Natalie makes me encounter my life like a bee sting. So I find that when reading one of her works, I read very slowly anyway, but it almost doesn't matter where in the book I jump in, because almost any page has the same effect. And I am very grateful for what that has done to me, and how that has, in a way, brought me to a continuing closeness to my own life. Her new book, I'm halfway through, and I'll put in a plug for it, but it's a sincere plug. In my mind now, in the excitement of reading it, I think it's her best work. It's the most deeply considered, mellowed piece of work. And if you haven't read it, I really exhort, go read it. It's good. But now I'll shut up and say Natalie Goldberg needs no introduction. Thank you.
I have studied with Krishnan, and you should study with him. He's fabulous. It doesn't matter what he's teaching. He's terrific. So, first of all, me driving here, you had certain images. When I was driving here, I came here when I was in 1970, and I was 22 years old. And I had just graduated from college, and I knew I didn't get any education. So I came to St. John's right afterwards to the graduate program in June. So it was 46 years ago. And it's so vivid to me when I was driving over my experience of first coming here. I think I took some kind of computer thing from the airport, and they just dropped me off. And suddenly, none of my people had ever been west of New Jersey. And suddenly, there was this sky. And I remember walking up the stairs and saying to someone, "The sky." And they said, "Yes." And then the buildings are extraordinary, don't you think? I mean, every building, you can't see now because there's a curtain, is connected to the outside and has a porch, and the doors were painted different colors. This was in 1970. We know that now. We've seen it, but in 1970, it blew my mind. And I also remember taking a yoga class, and when you're 22, I could get into any position. I could twist and turn. It was really great. So I'm very, very happy to be here, and I feel like it's very auspicious. But I wanted to have a little fun. So first, this is also the 30th anniversary of writing down the bones. So thank you. So when about a month ago, Taos had a celebration, a whole weekend celebration, and the mayor made it Natalie Goldberg Day, and it was really wonderful. And John Nichols, who I think all of you know, he wrote Milagro Beanfield War, besides many other books, wrote a song to the tune of Bob Dylan. So I'm hoping we could play it, and if you would, I just wanted to do that. And I want to dedicate it this time to Mary Fight. Okay, if it works.
Now this here's John Dillon and Bob Murphy doing a little song called Don't Think Twice, Just Right.
Going down that long, quiet highway, Hibbing, Minnesota's where I'm bound. Going down that long, quiet highway, my Zen teacher never makes a sound. We'll just sit there on a oriental rug, thoughts buzzing through our heads like 1,000 little bugs. We'll read without comment, then we'll just walk away and shrug, 'cause we won't think twice, we'll just write. Gonna start my writing practice early, when the birds start chirping in the trees. I'm gonna start that writing practice early, sitting peacefully on my knees. Gonna concentrate hard to make my mind blank. I'll think of all the Roshis that I have to thank. When I publish my book, I'll go running to the bank, 'cause I've freed my writer within. going down that long, quiet highway. Where I'm bound is no sin, going down that long, quiet highway, carrying my rider within. I'm gonna stop off and visit all my students' homes. I'm gonna teach them all how to write down their bones. We'll practice first thoughts and composting skills. Don't think twice, we'll just write. Going down that long, quiet highway, a fast writing pen clutched in my hand. I'm going down the long, quiet highway till I make my students understand. The power of detail is just like baking a cake. Don't tell, just show, and fine writing will make. And nothing erotic that we write will ever be fake if we just free that writer within. Going down that long, quiet highway, one notebook a month is my goal. Going down that long, quiet highway, take a step off that 100-foot pole. I really enjoy stepping off of that edge. When I put pen to paper, my bets I never hedge. To keep on writing is my life's forever pledge. And I don't think twice, I'll just write. Going down that long, quiet highway, Bob Dylan is singing in my ear. Going down that long, quiet highway, staying present with nothing to fear. I ask myself, why do I write every Monday in a booth? I'm not a goody two-shoes, and I never use Bluetooth. I'm wearing blue lipstick, though it never seems uncouth, 'cause I just freed my rider within. Going down that long, quiet highway, the next book is already in my head. I'm going down that long, quiet highway, gonna finish 12 more before I'm dead. First I think I'll write just 10 short poems. Can't create art by using form alone. You know I gotta keep on just writing down them bones, and I won't think twice, I'll just write. Take it away, Sean.
That was cut from 18 verses. I don't know if you know about John Nichols. He can't say no to anything, so people are always over at his house, so he writes. He begins writing at 1 a.m. and writes till about 5 or 7 and then sleeps. And so he wrote that in the middle of the night. So I really appreciate it. And also that's what's happening in Taos. You know, Taos and Santa Fe seem so far apart from each other. Okay, so this is the 30th anniversary of Bones. I'm going to read from The Great Spring, and I'll open it up to any questions. But before that, I want to do one other thing. Writing Down the Bones has been, continuously selling, and it's sold almost now 2 million copies. And I want to show a secret about it. How many of you write here? How many of you are writers? Okay, so a bunch of you. How many of you are readers? I can't take that for granted anymore in the U.S. So I'm going to give you a secret about Writing Down the Bones, that anyone can read it, even a second-year-old. And I have a second-year-old here who was kind enough, who's going to come up here and read a paragraph. Pippa, you want to come up? She's a friend of mine. And I asked her if she wouldn't mind. And I'll hold the mic, okay, and you come up. This is Pippa. Okay, so I'm just going to pick a paragraph, probably the first paragraph, because it's the beginning. And the title is Beginner's Mind, Pen and Paper. So can you see it? Okay, so you want to read it?
When I teach a beginning class, it is good. I have to come back to beginner's mind, the first way I thought and felt about writing. In a sense, that beginner's mind is what we must come back to every time we sit down and write. This is no security, no assurance, and that because we wrote something good 2 months ago, we will do it again. Actually, every time we begin, we wonder how we even did before. Each time is a new journey with no maps.
Great.
I go to Seiki and Madre.
They're doing a good job there. Second grade. Thank you. Should I switch can we switch? So the reason I wanted to do that is my Zen teacher was still alive when I finished the book, and he was Japanese, and English was really hard for him. And his one comment about Writing Down the Bones, he said, "It's easy to read, very good, small words." So I wanted to show an example that I wrote it, not consciously, but at a level that anyone could read it, that you can get it at any level. So Pippa, maybe next, I have to give you a present. I have to give you the book, don't I? I'm going to have to give you a copy of it. Thank you so much. That was very brave of her. So here's my new book, The Great Spring. But actually the two came out together, the 30th edition, 30th anniversary edition, and The Great Spring. But I put together The Great Spring. Not everyone knows. I had cancer for 14 months. And during that time, I put together The Great Spring, partially because I've been practicing writing for probably 45 years at least. So you keep doing it. Even when you have cancer or whatever, you just keep doing it. And that's what I advocate, is that you make something a practice. And the other example I use, you still, when you put on your shoes, you tie a bow. You tie them. That's a practice. And if you have cancer, you still put on your shoes and tie them. So Natalie Goldberg still wrote. So in the afternoons, in the empty afternoons, I put this book together. And I particularly wanted to because I didn't know if I was going to make it out the other end. And I wanted to express some things about my life. And so there are 22 personal essays. And I'm going to read just one small section of one to begin with in the first part of the book when I went to Japan. And I want my body near you. I feel so far away. I want to read this particularly because I don't name St. John's, but I'm referring to it. And I had been practicing with a Japanese Zen master for 12 years. And when he died, I went to Japan. It took me a while, but 8 years after he died, I went to Japan. And I was very excited to go there. And I went with my partner at the time, Michelle, and we met a couple there. Someone set us up with a couple who spoke English. And I just want to read you this little part where we meet the couple and go to a coffee shop, because it refers with St. John's in here too. So Kenji and Tamako. They grind their own beans here, Kenji said as he drove us to a coffee shop. The smell cleared my sinuses. I rarely drink coffee. I have enough trouble sleeping. But at this moment, I was so elated to speak to a native, not to feel so alone, that I ordered a shot of espresso. The four of us sat at a small square table, elbow to elbow. So how do you know English so well, I asked. The white cups were placed in front of us. I took a sip. The black blend cut off the top of my head. My eyes darted around the room. No tea, cookies, buns, rolls, rice cakes. Zen purity had been translated into a single-taste caffeine shop. Kenji explained, we lived in England for 4 years. I was getting a PhD in philosophy. Really? Who did you study over there? I'd done my master's in Western philosophy in my early 20s in a college in New Mexico. But soon after I discovered Zen, I never thought of Bergson or Heidegger again. I did Immanuel Kant. You're kidding. I did my thesis on him. You went all the way over to Europe for Kant? In America, we want to study Dogen. It was Kenji's turn to be dumbstruck. His nose crunched up. Ugh, no one understands Dogen. He's much too difficult. Then I let the bomb drop. I've been a Zen student for more than 2 decades. Now Tamako grimaced. That's awful. No one here likes Zen. I had suddenly become peculiar to this Japanese couple. Kenji said, Zen monks all die young. I already knew, but asked anyway. Why? The training's too hard for a human being, he said. My teacher had died in his early 60s. I could name several other Zen teachers who had died too early. I had hoped it was the difficult shift they had made to American life, but it was the years of knee-aching, back-breaking sitting on little sleep. The conversation slid into pleasantries. Yes, I was a writer. Yes, my first book had been translated into Japanese. My cup was almost empty. If I took one more sip, I'd buzz out the window. I threw care to the neon lights above the entrance and put liquid to mouth. I leaned in close. Can I ask you a question? They nodded simultaneously. Michelle rolled her eyes. She knew where this was going. That morning in bed, I had had a realization. Maybe I did know a little Japanese after all. In the Zendo, we chanted from chant cards that translated Japanese sounds into English syllables. Does this sound familiar? I asked, and then belted out the first line of the early morning chant. Dai, sai, get up, puku, right in the coffee shop. Kenji and Tamako shook their heads. Never heard of it. They must have learned that head shake in England. When I shook my head no here, everyone looked at me blankly. You're kidding, I said. What does it mean? Tamako asked. I was too disappointed to be embarrassed. Great robe of liberation. They both stared at me. So you see, St. John's follows me wherever I go. So I'm going to read this, The Lineage of Literature. Sitting in the third row, fourth seat in Mr. Cates' 10th grade English class, I held The Ballad of the Sad Cafe, the 70-page novella by Carson McCullers, in my young hands. It was an October day in Farmingdale, Long Island, but the peach trees were blossoming in Georgia in the wide and painful terrain of this book. From the very first paragraph, how can I say this? Every dark word on every white page penetrated me, clearing my mind of any superfluous thought. My early life disappeared into the language of Miss McCullers, as Mr. Cates called her, and my aching heart found a larger aching, a bigger, more hollow, echoing receptacle. I was Miss Amelia. I was Cousin Lyman. I even became cruel and dejected Marvin Macy. I empathized with each character. I have never forgotten them or their names. Miss Amelia, who never married except for 10 disastrous days to Marvin Macy, lived alone above the cafe and general store where she sold her famous homemade brew and some staples, such as meal, snuff, and animal feed. 6 feet 2 inches tall, with muscles like a man's and eyes slightly crossed, she was a shrewd businesswoman, had a passion for lawsuits, and enjoyed curing people of whatever ailed them. She developed her own remedies and administered care in her back office for no fee at all. At almost midnight on an April evening, with 5 locals sitting on Miss Amelia's porch and the street deserted, a lonely little hunchback appeared down the road. He was childlike, ugly, and destitute. For no apparent reason, Miss Amelia moved him upstairs to her 3 rooms, where no one else had ever been. That meeting of the 2 of them began the tale. The entry of Marvin Macy, gone for many years, just out of the state penitentiary for robbery and suspicion of murder, completed the strange triumvirate. When Miss Amelia and Marvin Macy finally greased up to fight each other, first exchanging blows, and after half an hour of punches, locked into a wrestling hold, the terrible test of strength near to climax. Reading about her hoarse breaths, her strong hands at his throat, I felt frightened and jolted. I had never encountered anything like this before. The sheer physicality of the 2, a man and a woman, faced off in something having nothing to do with love, except as an energy twisted to a force of dead rage and power. This was a lot to take in for a young suburban girl. I reeled from the fight. My eyes squeezed shut. I gritted my teeth, and something screamed in my head, "Yes, yes!" I've since been told, don't get stuck on the finger pointing to the moon when you want the moon. But even then, after reading The Ballad of the Sad Cafe, I didn't want the moon. It was enough to have the finger that knew to point. I needed words in and of themselves, those glittering beings that woke this neglected kid from her sleepy haze so long ago. Someone finally was talking to me. Every day I saw the sadness of my mother, the weariness of my hard-working grandparents, the meanness of my World War II veteran father, and the desolation of the men he served shots to in his bar. This was not a real pretty world, but it was a different part of the world, rendered real by Miss McCullers. She had written The Ballad of the Sad Cafe when she was 25 years old. How could someone of that age know these things? But it's not always age that teaches us. Sometimes the wounded heart of a person who knows how to write is enough. She also showed me this: to love is a frightening thing. We're pulled two ways: to stay closed and protect ourselves versus our boundless need to meet our nature. If we look at the state of the world, shutting down seems logical. But to truly live, we have no choice but to keep unfolding, even in the face of devastation. After my mother died, my sister couldn't bear selling her old house in Green Acres near Lake Worth, so for 2 years we negotiated. That word sounds far too sane. Eventually I put a lien on the house. My mother's lawyer refused to ever again do business with my sister. She was feral, distrustful, sure someone was cheating her, that I had no right to the small inheritance we were to share. Eventually, she got a mortgage and bought the house. She wanted everything intact, a mausoleum. I shipped home 2 of my grandmother's chairs and 1 small side table and left everything else for her. Each year for the past 3 years, I've gone down to Florida to pay homage to constant summer, humidity, palm trees, and alligators. I eat a single meal at the deli near my parents' house and then drift down Lake Avenue to Hoffman's Chocolates. This year, though, I take things more slowly. My girlfriend Maxime and I drive through the neighborhood, marveling at the houses lined in a row, all exactly alike. I park at the swimming pool and we walk the 3 blocks down to Amber Tree Lane. Then we sit on the small brick wall in front of that door to the house and note how the wandering Jew plants grow unchecked across the walkway. I feel content to sit here for several minutes. Finally, I step up to the brown door and ring the bell, put my ear to the metal surface and hear it ring in the empty house. I ring it again and again. "Mommy," I call out. "Mommy, it's me. Open the door." I want to go in badly. I haven't been in there for 4 years, and my sister, though she punctually pays the monthly mortgage, has not been there either. The neighbor across the street checks on it periodically. From what I've heard from the occasional terse emails I receive from my sister, the roof is leaking and the ceiling needs work. She hoped to rent it out year-round, but so far only a single man comes down for 3 months each winter. She has never met him. He is supposed to be very clean and has rearranged my mother's furniture. I want in, but I've left the key in the top drawer in my kitchen back in New Mexico. I've done this deliberately to protect myself from these moments. I no longer own this house. Technically, it would be breaking in. "Why don't you go across the street to the neighbor?" Maxime suggests. "Maybe she'll let you in." I hesitate. "Go over and just say hello." There's a Christmas wreath on the door and a lawn full of glittering deer and a sled and a fat Santa Claus. I ring the bell and the door opens. At first, Daisy doesn't recognize me. I mention my mother's name. "Oh, yes." She is friendly. "Would you like to go in? Your family. Meet me at the side door. I'll get the key." That was easy, I think, and we walk back across the street. She hands me the key, and voila, I step in. Every piece of furniture has been moved flat against some wall. No sitting arrangements, no conviviality. There's a water stain on my mother's dining room table and a batch of black ants on the white tile floor by the 2 windows. The ceiling paper is curling. Water has dripped through right at the threshold to her bedroom. All shutters are closed and the air conditioning is on low to avoid mildew, but not enough to cool. I get out quickly. No life in there. When Maxime and I get back to the hotel, I am paralyzed, remembering the evening walks to the pool alone after my father died. My mother ensconced in her chair in front of the TV. She played loudly, but could no longer hear or see clearly. The rough cement sidewalk on my bare feet, towel over my shoulder, sun setting too early in late November. I climb over the wall. The pool gate is locked at dusk and look around. Then I peel off my bathing suit and dive into the dark water, confident that none of the seniors, who rarely show even in the daytime, will dare come now. Then the dreaded walk back to the little box house on the corner. I replay that walk, entering the dark house, the gray light from the screen cast on my mother's face. She does not stir, and I lie down in the guest bedroom on the carpeted floor, where I've made a little bed of my grandmother's quilt. The frame of the sofa that opens to a bed has collapsed long ago. But first I close the door, turn off the air conditioning, open the metal shades and windows, positing that I'm the only one in the 500-unit community who performs this daring act, letting the cool, heavy air waft in directly. Maxime grew up in Hong Kong, where she didn't go to school until she was 10, and only then because her mother had managed to marry a British soldier stationed there in the 50s after the war. Her stepfather sent her to a British school in Hong Kong, where she didn't speak a lick of English, and she had her first pair of shoes, and the other schoolmates made fun of her because she was Chinese. When she complained at home to her mother, the advice was, fight back. She waited until each one of the 3 bullies were alone to take her revenge. With those shoes, her mother made them for her too large, intending them to last, with strong metal around the rim. She kicked each of her taunters hard in the butt. The last one, the leader, was a heavy British girl with dark, thick glasses. The girl fell to the floor crying. Maxime was about to smash her glasses with her shoes, but instead said, "I'm sorry I hurt you," realizing her enemy was in pain. After that, they became fast friends, the little Asian girl and the fleshy white Brit who towered over her. When her mother first met her stepfather, Maxime was farmed out to a poor family at age 7 for 2 years. Her mother was afraid the English soldier wouldn't want her if she had a child. Maxime's adopted family ate 1 bowl of rice a day and some salted fish. When they sat at the table, they kept their feet raised on the chair rungs. Rats came out at dinner and wandered under the table, hoping a crumb or morsel would be dropped. Barefoot, thin as a wire, she wandered the streets. The ghetto people called her the Wooden Beauty because she was so sad. After her mother couldn't get pregnant in England, she confessed to her new husband that she had a little girl left in Hong Kong. Her husband flew back and appeared at the door of the boarding house. Maxime was standing in the hall when the owner opened the door to this tall white Westerner. He told her to call him Daddy and yelled at the man that her mother sent monthly checks for her care, yet she was filthy and starving. The next day, he took her to the movies to see 101 Dalmatians. She sat next to him with one fist full of popcorn and the other gripping chocolate malted milk balls. Now, after 30 years on Wall Street, Maxime treats me to the Breakers, this hotel on the beach, first built in 1896 by oil, real estate, and railroad tycoon Henry Flagler to accommodate travelers on his Florida East Coast Railway. It burned down twice, and in 1925, the contractors abandoned the wooden construction for fireproof concrete. They built a 550-room replacement after the Villa Medici in Rome, complete with a large lobby, ceiling painted by a classically trained New York City artist. The building and grounds occupy 140 acres along the Atlantic Ocean. Out the large window in our room on the 5th floor, we can see the panoramic curve of the beach as the waves roll in, wave upon wave breaking on shore. At night, when we open the windows, we smell the salt air and feel in the black expanse all the distant places you can travel to, all the multitudinous stars sparkling over it all. McCullers wrote, "A weaver might look up suddenly and see for the first time the cold, weird radiance of a midnight January sky, and a deep fright at his own smallness stop his heart. McCullers showed me bone-chilling betrayal and crushing abandonment. Like much great literature, it pointed to something right in front of our noses. There is no cure for human life except to live it, being willing to rip off the blinders as we go and let the light in." Could you follow it? Because it jumped a lot. Okay. As I read it, I thought, when are we going to get back to Carson McCullers? So, actually, I want to tell you something. I read recently in Coral Gables in Florida, and I read this piece, and Maxime was there, and it was the first time I read it. And afterwards, at night, in the middle of the night, she said she started to think about that girl that she knocked over, the big Brit, and she said she remembered that the glasses were really thick because it was in the 50s where they didn't learn to make thin glasses, really thick. And when she fell down, she was reaching for the glasses, and Maxime's foot with that huge shoe hovered, and she was about to smash it. And she said, "This is where you develop character. You either smash it or you bend down." I bent down and picked it up, gave it to her, and then walked away. And she said, "I remembered she came running after me, and she gave me 3 marbles. And she took my hand and took me to the playground. I didn't speak any English, and she didn't speak Chinese. She took my hand, took me to the playground, and taught me to play marbles. And I wasn't good at it. And then she gave me her king marble, and I started winning. And I never bought a marble, but at the end I had a bag of marbles." She said, "I think she let me win." I said, "Why didn't you tell me that before? I would have put it in here." So do you have any questions? Would you like to ask anything? Yeah. George Washington University, and I majored in English literature, which was ridiculous there. But I didn't know anything. Nobody in my family had gone to college, and they didn't help me, and I shouldn't have been there. Yes, I went to the Phillips Gallery all the time, every Sunday. Yeah.
I love your humor. And now that I'm learning you had cancer during the time you were writing it, it becomes even more awesome. So in just But she's so earnest and so serious. But your projects are the same, to know the self, to encounter the self. Can you tell us how you were able to be funny? Where did it come from?
My father. I like humor. Allen Ginsberg, when he started the Naropa Institute, the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, someone said to him, "How do you get to teach here?" And he said, "Write one great book or one funny poem." Yeah. When did I start writing and how did I start? Oh, that's a long story, but very briefly, I was 24 years old. And I was always in love with literature, but it never dawned on me to write because we mostly read, besides Carson McCullers, mostly dead male writers from the 17th century England. So nothing about their experience was like mine, so I didn't think I had anything. And one day I found a book of poetry called Fruits and Vegetables by Erica Jong, before she wrote Fear of Flying. And I opened it up, and the first poem was about sautéing an onion. And I've sautéed onions. And I thought, you can write about that? And so I shut the book and I said, okay, I'm going to write. And I went home and I said, I'll write about my family because I know them better than anyone else. And nobody could say I'm wrong. Yeah.
It seems as though you write a lot of, memoir and people that are real in your life. And I'm just curious, has that, like places of conflict maybe have you encountered with people feeling like exploited or, that's my own personal experience, I wasn't expecting it out in your book, or how do you navigate that ground?
Well, for instance, the part about Maxime, I asked her if it was okay. And she couldn't believe that her life had anything that anyone would be interested in it. And it actually took me years to pull it out of her, any detail. But like my sister, writing about her, my feeling is, well, that was my experience. If you don't like it, you write your own book. But people always deal with that as a writer. I'm pretty mean, I'm going to say what I see. You already had your hand up, young lady. Reed?
You mentioned earlier that John Nichols writes between 1 and 5 a.m. When do you write? What's your writing practice? How do you prepare for it? Tell us about your writing practice.
Well, I've been writing for so long, it's different. At the beginning, I used to, when I was working on something, I'd write from 9 in the morning till 1. And then I'd never think about it otherwise. And I never talk about what I'm writing. It's sort of like I just get pregnant. I never talk about it, and I don't share it, and I don't think about it. I don't think about it till I pick up the pen and go. And now, it varies. When I'm working on a book, I just finished a manuscript about having cancer, and it was unbearable. So I said, Nat, you only have to do it 1 hour a day. So I woke up at 7, and I'd write for an hour, and I couldn't handle anymore. So I do an hour, and then I eased myself into it. So you have a different relationship with everything you write, for me anyway. Yes, yeah. Except you get tired, he doesn't have any life, yeah. Yeah. Like he couldn't come and sing it. They had to tape it because the gathering was in the morning. So, and he sleeps in the morning. You had your hand up? Yeah.
So do you still write longhand, or
Yes, I write longhand. I do everything that I say in Bones. I haven't changed at all. But I do have a typist who puts it into a computer. But then she makes it 3 spaces in between, so then I can edit. But I use those spiral notebooks. But I've been doing it for so long, I get so angry when I go to a drugstore now and they're $3.69. They used to be $1.29. And I expect them to stay there. I stayed the same. Why can't they? And also now there's square corners. And I liked it when it was rounded corners. I mean, this was my equipment. I paid attention to it. Anything else? Okay, yeah.
I was just wondering how your St. John's education affected your writing, or your beginning to write.
Yeah. Well, I found Zen, and my St. John's education sort of fell off a cliff, which was actually arrogant of me. And in the last years, I realized how much it gave me. And one of the things that it gave me was, as a writer, you have to trust in your own experience and have a confidence that your life and what you experience has value. And at St. John's, when you're studying a book, you really have to have a confidence in your mind because you meet directly an author. You don't read about an author, you meet the author. It's only you and the author. And when you're in a seminar, you have to hear what you're thinking and share it. And it's scary. And so you build a confidence and a trust in your own thoughts. And that's really, is exactly what I needed for writing. So that's one thing. I'm actually been asked, which I feel a great honor, I'm giving the graduation address to the graduate program here in August. And I've been thinking about it a lot. And it gave me a very strong foundation. And I really appreciate it. I could go on, but you could hear it at the graduation address. Yeah.
So I'm interested in how you discovered St. John's from New Jersey and what your parents thought of you coming to New Mexico.
When I left home at 18, I really never went home again. I was on my own. And when I was in Washington, D.C., Annapolis, Maryland is nearby, so I heard about it. And then I just heard about it. I don't even remember. It was a flash. I heard they have a graduate program in Santa Fe. And I just said, I'm going. You know how sometimes there's no thought. That was it. Because literally, I graduated in May, and I came in June. Which mostly you'd think, I don't want to go to school anymore. But I was hungry. I was really hungry. And at that time, you could go, you could come every summer. So I would earn money and then come. And the last time I didn't have enough money, and they gave me a fellowship. And my parents, they didn't care. I mean, I was so out. When I didn't get married and have children, when I graduated college, I was free. I didn't, the gig was up. I don't even think they thought about it, Natalie is out there. Maybe I'll take 1 or 2 more, and then I didn't know they have refreshments in the next room, and I can sign books. So, yeah. Oh, yes, I still paint. And did you see the new edition of Living Color? Oh, it's beautiful. Abrams brought out a new edition with 70 new paintings. Yeah. Yes, I still paint. Yeah. And there was one more, and then we can go have refreshments. Okay. Yes, young lady.
About St. John's. Here we're supposed to have no teacher, we have a tutor. So when I read your book and I saw you make reference to your own Zen teacher who
Well, being a teacher, I think what I mean is a teacher of the whole person, of the whole mind and spirit and heart. And I actually thought I had pretty wonderful tutors at St. John's. And what I loved about them and what I learned from them was that even though they had a PhD in physics, they had to teach Greek. So I watched how they learned and how they entered things. I was studying mind. That's basically what I think you ultimately do at St. John's. You study mind. My mind and the mind of the authors and the mind of the people around you. And can you bear everybody's mind? So please buy books, support buying books, support this bookstore. I don't know if you know, St. John's has a fabulous bookstore. And also it helps me because the publisher only pays attention to the first 2 months of how the sales are. So this is the first 2 months. So if you want to buy a book, buy it now. Okay, and I'll be happy to sign them. So thank you very much.